Hello, Faye and Ashley. Welcome.
Hey.
Hi.
Nice to see everybody. So, for those of you, as we wait for people to join, Faye and I are from Toronto, and we have met in person. We've recorded in person, but Ashley is from North Carolina. So we have actually never, the three of us, met in person. We've always had to pass Ashley in. So this is sort of, even though this is virtual, this is the first time we're all seeing each other together.
Yeah, that is kind of
fun. So how have you guys been doing? Faye, in these strange times of ours, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I've been able to work from home, so I'm super grateful that my office has been able to transition into the virtual online world. So yeah, I pretty much work full time from home, and the hours are quite long, but it's not bad because we're all just trying to help each other out and accommodate each other's like family structure. There's a lot of folks that are taking care of their children during the day, so we're just trying to be there for one another during this very, very unusual time.
Yeah. And what about you, Ashley?
Yeah, kind of the same. So end of February, I actually quit my regular job. I went full time with my business. So it was interesting timing. Thanks. Yeah, it was interesting timing in that I was already working from home, so I kind of just continued to work from home. So that's sort of what things have looked like. So it's still new to me because I'm not what I used to do is travel to nursing homes as a dietitian. So it's interesting to not be on the road and go into those nursing homes. But at the same time, I'm really enjoying working from home and doing my remote nutrition coaching from home too.
Oh, that's excellent. And I know you post a lot, or you used to post a lot about your when you were doing workouts in the gym. So
yes,
changed.
Yes, that has changed significantly. And it's interesting that you brought that up because I've been working out pretty much all outdoors, which has been fantastic. And thankfully, living in North Carolina, the weather has allowed for it. But I recently got my vitamin D levels checked, and it was the highest it has been in years. And so I was like, there's a silver lining to not being able to go into the gym.
Yeah, there are some silver linings. True. So now when it comes to food and the fact that we have been living during this COVID pandemic, how have your grocery habits changed, if they have? Ashley?
So I used to actually order a lot of groceries online just out of convenience. But as more of us stayed at home and more people were doing that, things got pushed back, so you couldn't get it conveniently delivered, within a couple hours. So it ended up being, I think now the delivery is maybe like 3 to 5 days. It just depends on the place. So things have changed, and I'm not ordering online like I used to, because that was really convenient for me, especially too because my husband and I share a car, so I didn't have and because he actually travels to work back then, before COVID, it was a little bit easier for me to just order the groceries and get that done. So now he's actually going to the grocery for us, which is very nice because I prefer just to kind of stay at home and still keep my distance. So he kind of gowns up, let's say, and goes in and kind of gets our groceries for us after I kind of plan and create the list for him. So things have changed a little bit there.
Yeah. And
that's amazing.
Faye, are you doing something what have you changed, if anything? And also, people are going to want to watch and hear about this because of the plant-based aspect of it. How easy is it, or has it become more difficult to kind of keep a more plant-based diet when you have to shop in a different way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So my routine hasn't changed too much. I'm very fortunate to live really downtown Toronto area, so a lot of food stores are very accessible to me. The only thing I would say that's dramatically changed is the amount of times I would go to the grocery store. So, I'm very much about fresh produce, fresh fruit and veggies, but with everything that's going on right now, I really don't want to be going to the grocery store 2-3 times a week. So so my husband and I have pretty much reduced it to once every other week. And when we go, we really look for items that will last us longer, in particular with fruits and veggies. I'm really looking for those organic, frozen bulk items. Costco's been great for that. They've brought in a ton of like organic berries and like frozen organic veggies and that kind of thing. So we've gone on definitely like a freezer stock, and that typically lasts us 2 weeks. And so yeah, we've just been looking for more frozen items and reduce the amount of time we go.
Yeah. I guess like very similar patterns. What about your pantry items? What have you been, I don't want to say stocking up on because there's no need to stock up, but because you're going fewer times, let's say, what's in your pantry?
That's a good question. And say I'm kind of the same way where I've been buying just a lot more frozen foods because it's been easier. And like you said, like my husband doesn't have to go to the grocery store as often. So I love that. I think that's definitely been a change as well. I would say pantry wise, we tend to like kind of like what you said, Faye, go to Costco. So we have like just larger bags of rice and quinoa in our pantry, which just tends to last us longer. That's just kind of how we shop in general. And the same with beans. Like we always have our pantry, well stocked with beans just because we're constantly eating them. So we kind of have this, like, I call it a par level, just like kind of a set amount that I want to have in there. That way, in general, that we don't run out, and we kind of always have, cans of beans on hand or dried beans in case we want to like take the time to throw them in the Instant Pot. So those have been kind of the same ones. And I don't know about you, Faye, but I tend to like buy a lot of staples in bulk. And so we have like a lot of oats on hand, just kind of those like baseline ingredients that will last us for a really long time, and we don't have to purchase things as frequently.
Yeah, definitely. I could totally relate to that. Our pantry, if you were to look in it right now, there's just the basic items that we usually have, like canned chickpeas, basmati rice. We also have like quinoa, chia seeds, hemp hearts, that kind of stuff. But one thing in particular that I kind of started becoming a little bit more aware of, to make sure I always had stocked, just in case we run out of, proteins in the fridge, are my like plant-based protein powders. So in the past, if I ran out of one, I'd be like, that's okay. I can just, wait a week or two until, I go to the grocery store and I'll get another, one of my favorite plant-based protein powders. But now when I run out, I really notice it because it's kind of my go-to when I run out of stuff in the fridge and I have that kind of like day before I'm going grocery shopping or whatnot. I kind of like to plan when I go, because it is like a full day thing. I hit up like 2 or 3 stores and then I know I'm good for 2 weeks. So that protein powder kind of helps me know that if I've run out of, protein options in the fridge, I'll just have myself a really like protein heavy smoothie that day, and it'll carry me until, I go for that grocery shop later that evening or the next day. And so now I make sure that my pantry has like at least 2 protein powder options, like a unflavored and maybe like a chocolate or a vanilla, so that I have that, because once or twice I ran out and I was like, oh, this would have been really good to have right now.
Yeah.
How long does it last in the fridge? You keep it in the fridge, you said?
Flax, yeah. So anything that has a fat to it, I try and keep in the fridge, like ground flax or hemp hearts. Actually, those, once I open it, I put them in the fridge as well.
Okay, but the protein powder that you were talking about earlier, how long would that last in the fridge or wherever you store it?
It really depends on the brand that you're buying and what is in the actual protein powder itself. But typically the ones that I buy are either like hemp based. There's one that's mung bean based. That's a new one. That one's pretty good. So the ones that are like bean based, I would say, don't typically need to go into the fridge. But again, they all have expiry dates. So look at those expiry dates. Mine would last for about 3 months in the pantry, I would say.
Okay. Okay.
I know you were talking about stocking up on like frozen vegetables and like different. I just like slammed a smoothie before this because I'm like, my freezer is stocked, and I feel like that's just been how I've been like getting a lot of my like, vegetables and different things like that in. It's just been, like you said, kind of convenient, especially when you're working from home. I feel like, I don't know about you, Faye, but I'm just maybe prepping a little bit less, and so things are a bit more flexible. So it's like, oh, I feel like a smoothie today, so I'm going to go into my freezer and make one.
Did you, by any chance, did you find, you remember on the podcast, the Healthy Fats episode, did you ever find frozen avocado?
I have not found them anywhere. And I have been on the lookout, and I tell my hubby to look out for them too. So I'm hoping one of these days, I don't know if it's like a North Carolina thing or grocery store thing that we go to, but I fingers crossed they're down here somewhere.
I found it. So after we did the podcast, I went to the grocery store, I found them. And so what I would say is they're great for smoothies.
Yeah.
But to eat them just like if you let them thaw and then just eat it with whatever, it doesn't taste the same.
Sure, no. I can see that.
Definitely not. It tastes very rubbery, I find. I tried it and it was very rubbery, but it turns so creamy in a smoothie.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, actually this week, and what this smoothie is, it has like romaine and kind of some different herbs, but it also calls for avocado, but it's so hard because when you buy them fresh, it's like you really have to time it right, or you have to like wait a week until you can even make this smoothie. So I'm hoping one of these days I can find those avocados.
We were talking about the podcast and the healthy fats. I just wanted to let you know. So you guys have been guests on 3 podcasts for the plant-based diet, and it has over 11,000 downloads.
Nice.
Yeah, and so podcast, and then the one on healthy fats, which was just released last week, over 11,000 downloads. So I wanted to
That's amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you so much for providing that opportunity. It's just amazing to be able to talk about things that you truly love and have other people love listening to it. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's doing really well. It's also a great time, I think, to be talking about plant-based eating. People seem to be very interested, even if they're not exactly doing it, they're interested in it and they'd like to know more. So that probably accounts for some of the downloads that we're seeing on that. But I just wanted to let you know.
Yeah, that's awesome. It really is. And it's interesting you say that, because I did have like just some random clients say who still eat meat and things like that, but at least down here, our grocery stores seem to be running low on some of those like more meat-based proteins. And so it was somewhat of a struggle, but they were like, thankfully I kind of know how to eat plant-based just because of working with you, that it wasn't so much of a hurdle as maybe it had been beforehand.
Yeah, I think there's all sorts of reasons right now, especially that people are considering or want to learn more about plant-based, and definitely one of them is the shortage in some places of meat. So we'll keep doing it.
Yeah.
So what's for lunch? What do you have for lunch today? Faye? Oh, Faye's got a bowl.
I want to tilt the bowl, but I'm scared it'll
fall out. What's in that?
So I've made myself some cauliflower pasta. So there's so many, so I'm also gluten-free, and there's so many brands out there now that are offering really great options for gluten-free pastas. I felt like in the beginning years, a lot of the pasta options didn't taste very good, but in the last year or two, there's just been some really awesome options that are super healthy. So this one is a corkscrew pasta, cauliflower based, and then I've tossed it in some spinach, zucchini, and cherry tomatoes. And then I've also gotten like a pre-made organic pasta sauce. I put about half a cup of that in with just a little bit of water to reduce the acidity. And then I let that kind of cook down for a bit. And then once that was ready, I sliced up some fresh avocado and then topped it with hemp hearts because I pretty much put hemp hearts on everything.
Yes.
Nice.
How about you, Ashley?
So mine is somewhat similar. It's like a bowl. And it's kind of like what I was talking about with like, we're just kind of creating some hodgepodge meals. So for lunches, we just planned a little bit of rice, a little bit of beans, which these happen to be refried beans. And then some sweet potatoes, which I'd actually had in the freezer. And I recently, we bought a bunch of sweet potatoes last week and I went through them all. So I thankfully had some frozen ones in the freezer. So I just air fried those with some broccoli, and then a little bit of avocado, and then like a little bit of lentil sausage. So.
Oh, a lentil sausage. Nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That sounds really good.
Yeah.
How do you make your refried beans?
So these are from a can, but when I do make them, I do them in the Instant Pot. I usually just cook like a bunch of black beans with some herbs, and then basically just take my like blender and blend them up. I tend to overcook them. Blend them up so that they're good to go. And that's all I do. I know there's like, you could definitely do like extensive processes with all that, but super easy and really, really yummy. And it makes a ton, or as much as you want.
Do you soak your beans? I know for me, sometimes with kidney beans in particular, it gives me a little bit of an upset stomach, but if I soak them for 24 hours, I find it helps reduce the like indigestion.
Yeah, I've heard other people say the same thing, and I've definitely seen that out there too. I personally don't soak them. I just go straight into cooking them. So, yeah. And thankfully my GI system can handle it. So, but that's a good thing or bad thing.
Do you guys tend to have a larger meal at lunchtime or at dinner? Or you don't even pay attention?
That's a really good question. And I actually get asked it very often, like surprisingly, because I feel like there's this huge debate, like which meal of the day do you have that's the biggest? And I think it's a very personal like thing because I find my lunch to be the biggest meal of the day, but like my husband, his big meal would be breakfast. And then I know other people who do intermittent fasting and they don't have breakfast at all. And so, and myself too, actually, I probably did a year or two of intermittent fasting where my first meal of the day wouldn't be till about 11. And so, and then I went through another phase where I'm like, no, I really like breakfast, so I'm not going to do fasting anymore. So I just feel like you really got to follow what your body is telling you. Like if you're hungry, eat. Like don't ever deprive yourself of how much you want to eat, especially if it's healthy. Like the more fruits and veggies, the better. But I find overall, the biggest meal for me would probably be lunch. And then I would have a light breakfast and a light dinner. And sometimes, depending on how early my dinner was, like if I had a 5 o'clock dinner, I might have a 7 p.m. snack. Like I might have an apple with some almond butter or like some coconut yogurt, like something small around 7:30, just because I don't know, my body tells me I want something small to eat, so I go for it. How about you, Heather? I mean, Ashley?
I'm kind of the same way. I would say like lunch is typically a big meal for me, but again, kind of like what you were saying, Esther, it just depends on kind of like how I'm feeling, how busy I am, how much time I want to devote to like prepping a meal. And like you said, Faye, like listening to your body is obviously the utmost important thing. And two, sometimes it just depends on when I work out. If I work out earlier in the mornings, then I'm ravenous at lunchtime. I'm maybe less hungry at dinner. If I work out in the afternoons, then I'm a little bit hungrier after dinner. It totally depends.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this: as schools are going to end soon, if they haven't already. What is something plant-based that is easy for a parent to prepare for a child and that's child-friendly, like that the child is actually going to want to eat? Ashley, let's go with you.
Oh boy. So I do work with several clients who have kiddos, and this can kind of be a challenge, especially transitioning from school to home, which most of us have already done anyway, because the kids are home just because of what they have to do. But when you can get them involved, especially like the parents say, it seems to help like their compliance with eating the food. So I know, especially for lunches in particular, it can be helpful to like create like fun little sandwiches that they can kind of get involved with, like, you know, slapping the sun butter or like the jelly on, and to like creating like, I know one of my clients does this really well, where she creates like little animals out of like fruits and vegetables, because her kids tend to like those a lot more. And then another thing that came up too is like energy bites. Kids seem to just like those because they're, you know, there's something they can kind of pick up with their hands, depending on how old they are. And they tend to have like a lot of great things in them and also taste really good. So yeah, that's some of my options.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Ashley's suggestion of the energy bites, because they're so versatile and they're super fun to make, because kids can pretty much choose whatever they want to put in it. Put a few raw dates or a little bit of honey and blend it up, and all of a sudden you've got these really cool energy balls that they can also help form too. So not only are they making them, but they can also help roll them into balls and then put them in their little lunch bags. But yeah, it's tough because, you know, some kids just don't like veggies, or they don't like fruits, or they don't like, you know, quote unquote healthy food. But I think there are so many options out there, and if you kind of get them involved, as Ashley had mentioned, they really learn to appreciate the food and maybe give it a shot. Something that I personally love, and I find myself sharing with the kids in my family, my nieces and nephews, are sliced cucumber with pretty much like any kind of dip. So there's so many fantastic colorful dips out there now, like beet dip and hummus dip and baba ganoush and like all these fancy things. So, you know, find a dip that they like that's healthy again, or make one with them, and then tell them to choose their favorite veggie to put next to it, and see how creative they get. You can also mix and match with colors. Tell them to find like a colorful fruit with a colorful dip that would, you know, entice them to try, and see how it goes.
Yeah, what about sources of protein though? Because that's, when it comes to plant-based proteins, that's a tough one. I find, like, I do have children, and so, you know, there are no beans to be had, no to quinoa, no to legumes. I mean, no. So I struggle with that one. You know, if I do want to serve something that is plant-based, I have yet to find something that they're growing. They need the protein for sure.
Yeah, that can definitely be challenging. And I don't know, Faye, if you have anything to add to that, but I can't imagine, like, especially plant-based sources of protein, they can just be, especially if you're not used to eating them, they're kind of like a little weird, you know. It's just like, you know, especially like legumes and tofu and tempeh. Like, well, what are these things? So I know that can be challenging. I had one parent who would, she would like puree the beans and put them into things, and they went unnoticed. So I don't know if that's a viable option, but I know there's like all these mom hacks out there, and they are so impressive with what they can do.
Yeah, if there are any moms watching this, if you have any hacks, please let us know what they are. That would be very helpful. But to what Faye was saying about dips, maybe you can mash up or food process the beans and make a bean dip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I
know.
I would also, sorry.
No, go ahead, Faye.
Yeah, I would also say, depending on their age, you know, once they hit like 6, 8, 10 years old, have them making smoothies with you. Just get them in the kitchen and give them some options. And if they aren't having a lot of, you know, protein-based foods during the day, have a smoothie snack, midday, and encourage them to choose fruits and veggies that they enjoy, and then add in a scoop of like an unflavored protein plant-based option. And then that may be a way to help ensure that they are having some kind of protein in there at least once or so a day. And depending on the protein that you purchase, there's so many clean options out there right now. It'll tell you how much protein intake will actually be part of 1 scoop or 2 scoops, or however much you're using. So you can ensure that that's how much they're getting into their daily diet. I'm sure Ashley can speak more onto how much protein, is ideal. But yeah, you can get that all through a plant-based protein option if you're really nervous about them not being able to eat a meal that's protein efficient.
Yeah, I've heard of parents with smoothies in particular, they like, if the child has like a favorite color, or one family in particular, their son is really into Avengers, so like all the superheroes. So they make a lot of like green Hulk smoothies, and I know there's other colors or other superheroes out there that are like, have like a certain color to them. So they kind of base it off that and then create like the smoothie just to kind of make it fun and exciting and relatable.
That's very cute. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Me too.
Okay. Well, we are actually out of time. But thank you so much for joining Alternative Food Network today and doing this. It was so nice to have everyone together. And I hope you guys stay well, enjoy your lunch.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks.
Stay well and enjoy the summer.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Pleasure. Bye, guys.
Bye.